universe is calling you. The universe is calling me. It speaks both day and night. It's full of dark and light.
Pow. Hey,
How?
how are you, Tara?
Hey, good. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Sky Tour Radio with me, Mark D'Antonio. There's the name right there. You see it right there. It says, not Nad Cram. Well, from here, anyway. And that's, well, I want to see your name backwards because it sounds bad.
A rat. I'll say it. It's not like I've never heard that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, tonight, folks, we're going to spend an hour with Marianne Robb, who is the founder with Dave Rich of UAPPD, which we'll talk about in a little while. We don't normally have guests on, but I think it's kind of cool that Tara, being one of the triumvirate in Sky Tour Livestream, and Marianne, the other umvirate.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Umvirate or ungulate? No, umvirate. Okay.
I think it's Umbra. Oh,
yeah, the other Umbra. I'm an Umbra from another Umbra. No, I don't know.
Umbra.
Well, anyway, it's nice to have all three of us together on one broadcast, which is kind of cool. And so Marianne thought of an idea, and she thought, well, since she's down in Benson at the observatory doing maintenance and stuff, would it be kind of cool to give a live tour of the observatory? Yeah. And that's exactly what she's going to do. But before that, we have to kind of bring her in. I think we have to probably bring her in, right? Just
Let's
to say
do
hi.
that. Ah, there she is. Hi, Marianne.
There she is now. Yeah.
Hi, guys. Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Welcome to Sky Tour Livestream.
Thank you.
We're going to talk a little bit more about UAPPD in a bit. All right. But what I'd like to do first is to just say to everybody watching that these two are the reason right here. These two are the reason that we have what we've got. Okay. Tara and Marianne are the ones that did all the work. Not all of it, but almost all of it. Right? Yeah. And Marianne, yes.
Yep.
She did a little. Okay.
Just a little.
Just a little. To get everything up and running. So we had it's really good. And I can announce now, I've been given the clearance. We received a grant from the Asterian Foundation, which is a foundation which gives grants to outreach astronomy projects around the world. And they selected us to provide us with enough to get a new spectrometer and a camera system to go with it. And we'll be responsible for the telescope that we're going to use to put that on. And it's probably going to go right in the building where Marianne is now. And so we'll have the ability to study the compositions, the chemical makeup of what we are seeing out in the universe. When we look at things like a star, we can look at the star's spectra and see with detail exactly what it's composed of. And when we look at galaxies, we look at planetary nebulae and things like that, we'll be able to see all kinds of incredible data that shows us a lot about where these things come from and what their composition is and how they're made. Okay. And just as a reminder, here is an example of spectra. Okay. These are all these different stars you see right here along the top here, down the O stars all the way down to the M, O, B, A, F, G, K, M. And those stars have spectra that break apart the light. But it's not just stars. Okay. We also have spectra that come from nebulae. And this is an example right here. Those vertical lines inside the picture show where the sampling is being done, and everything below shows you the elements and compounds that were found inside this nebula. This is stuff we've never been able to do, but now it's within our reach, and we're going to be able to do that along with showing you breathtaking images of all these same things. So at the same time, that we're actually showing you these beautiful images. We're going to be able to show you how they're made, what they're composed of. There's no one doing this. I mean, I don't think
You're
there's no
doing
one
it.
doing this. I'm doing it, but we are doing it. But I don't think
Telling at it.
there's anybody else doing this out there live.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, Marianne.
Oh, cool. That's
you're-
great, Mark. Just real quick before you go,
Yeah.
cool news about getting that grant. I mean, that's
Oh, I know.
amazing. It's just incredible. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
The,
And I gotta thank Mike, who is the guy that was facilitating this for us.
Thanks, Mike.
Asterian Foundation. Asterian is made up of a lot of real heavyweights. There's some big science museums in New Mexico. Lowell Observatory, Flagstaff, is underwriting this grant in part, and other organizations. The International Dark Sky Association is helping underwrite. So
cool.
it's not like we're set for life amount. It's actually enough to buy some equipment. And we have to do all the work, but what? I'm happy about that, because guess what?
That's amazing.
We didn't have the money to do the work with.
Right.
To do the work with. So now, thanks to Asterian Foundation, we were able to do that. And I do want to make sure that we give a shout out to them, because Asterian Foundation has been really fantastic.
Definitely.
And we're going to see Asterian Foundation in all our streams going forward as well.
That's great. That's
so
great.
Courtesy and with support of Asterian, we actually have, hey, it's Mike. That's the guy we were just talking about.
Mike cool. Toomey. Hey, Mike.
Hi,
Thank
Mike.
you for joining us, Mike.
Oh, great.
I talked to him today. He's an amazing guy. I'm really excited to be part of this. This is wonderful.
Really down to earth guy. He's actually, and not to, like, I'm not patting myself in the back here, but he's, he recognizes people that are actually genuine and trying to do the right thing for the astronomy community out there.
Nice.
So I'm so happy that he chose us to do this with, and I'm humbled by it too. And now Marianne is out there, and again, like I said, we're going to talk about her UAP PD organization that she has with Dave Rich in a little while. But now that we have Marianne here, what I'd like to do is have her show you around the place a little bit. I think you'll actually be able to go outside too and show what it looks like outside, and show the observatories. We're on a plateau at 3,600 feet down in Benson, on this Benson Plateau. And we're sharing the mountain with about 8 or 9 other professional astronomers. And this is really, really awesome.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go outside. I apologize. It is windy and sunny. So I'm going to go ahead and change
go ahead.
My camera to so you guys are walking out the observatory. So I apologize for the moving around. I'm going to go as slow as I can.
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
But let me just show you. This is the entrance into our observatory. Mark will take the roof off here in just a little bit.
Sure.
But let me just show you. These are the other 9 buildings that are here. And pretty much each one has an astronomer. Mark, you can explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But that is facing south. Just totally open, wide open sky.
Beautiful, yeah.
Now, I apologize. Let me just kind of show you up here to the west. That's an older observatory that was called the Vega Bray at one time.
Yeah.
But Mark, why don't you talk a little bit about what they're doing up there now?
Yeah, actually, there's one of the facilities at the top of that little bump there, that little hill. They actually have about 30 telescopes or more that are all looking at one specific spot in the sky. As the Earth rotates, they just stay fixed. And the reason is because each telescope is monitoring one of the geostationary satellites, that are out there. So the satellites are always in the view when they're actually looking at that spot. During the day, you can't see it, of course, but at night, when we rotate out from the sun, it'll be dark and you'll actually be able to see it. And that's really the coolest thing, And so they're doing that research up there. The Vega Bray main instrument, I don't think it's active right now, but it's okay, because they have these lower observatories, and the way these lower observatories work is they're like boxes, and the roof rolls right off and exposes the telescope to the sky. So, with traditional domes, you have a dome and you have a slot in the dome, and wherever the telescope looks, the slot has to follow, so you can be looking through that slot or the slit. And as it moves, telescope, the slit has to line up with the telescope. That said, it may not sometimes. And I had a dome on my front lawn here in Terryville, Connecticut. It was a talk of the town. People stopped, took pictures of it, said, "Look at that big thing in the front lawn." Yeah, okay. And for Halloween one year, I dressed it up as Stuart the Minion from Despicable Me.
Oh, funny.
Okay, it's a big giant coveralls, big giant eyeball. Oh yeah, it was hilarious. And that drew a lot of attention. I probably should have just painted it like with camouflage, so no one would even know it was there. But I outgrew it, and so I ended up selling it to a guy down in Long Island, and he ended up doing whatever he's doing with it. But what I'm going to do now is in the front where that telescope used to be, I'm going to put in a solar observatory. Meanwhile, down in Benson, where Marianne is right now, down there in that picture just below, you can see her. She's looking out at the landscape. This is what we see out there. Look at
This
how
is
beautiful.
We're looking to the northeast right now. This is all to the northeast.
Nothing there.
And that's going to be straight north, right in that area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolute total blue sky, not one cloud. There's a couple way out in the distance.
Yeah.
But let's check out the inside of our observatory. And I think what we need to do right now is, Mark, I'm going to say the magic words. Open
Sesame.
the observatory. Yes, from Terryville, Connecticut.
Yeah,
I'm not touching anything. This is all Mark.
No, that's okay. I'm 2,600 miles away, and I'm gonna open the building now. Okay, and you can see the roof slides off, and as Marianne moves to the side, you'll actually see how the roof comes off the building. We still have some adjustments to make. The roof doesn't go off quite all the way, but not a problem. We're very grateful that we actually have the location. So when you walk in, here
we go.
Okay, there's the telescope, and I know you can't really tell what's telescope and what isn't right now because you're not sure what you're looking at, but you're looking at counterweights right there, those round things in the upper right, and those go across an axis of a telescope, and on the other side you have the actual telescope barrel itself. Okay, and at the back end you see the business end. This is where the cameras and filters and everything are. Okay, just to the left of that. Okay, I know that's probably sun as well, but you can see. I can see it. Yeah.
Can you wake it up at all by any chance, just to move it?
Yes, I can.
Let's go ahead and just show everybody, because this will show how big it is, and there's our mission control right there. It's got a
that is mission control.
Nice little desk.
Perfect.
Okay.
So
telescope has been awakened, and I'm going to set it up to one of its positions right here. There it goes.
Listen.
Yeah, stay out of its way, Marianne.
Oh, I am. Those counterweights would hurt.
Well, you're watching about 300 pounds move around right over your head right now, so you want to be careful about that. All right, so now she'll be able to show you the back end of the telescope. Okay,
neat.
The left side is the front up there to the left, and right here now is the back end. Okay, we have a bunch of capabilities at this back end here. You'll notice those red things. What are those red things? Well, the furthest back red thing, that red barrel, that's actually the camera. It's a dedicated astronomy camera. They're really cool. They're really neat. And to the right of that is a little box that looks like it's attached to the telescope, and that's because it is. And that is an autofocus system, all right, that's attached, that little square box. And then in between the camera and that little box is another red little thing, and that's a guiding camera, a camera that's picking off a little bit of the telescope field, finding a star, and guiding the telescope to keep it perfectly dead set on an object. All right, so this is, and that black thing in front of that red barrel at the back, that black thing, that's a filter wheel, a 5-position filter wheel that I can run from here. I can rotate the filters here and move it to the next filter, so we can take different photos in a different way using different filters. And that gives us a lot of capability. Now, this is a very robust mount. That pier is about 150 pounds. Okay, there's that black part down below. And then add another 80 or so for the white mount that you see the telescope attached to at the top. Okay, and then the rest of the weight is the telescope itself. So we got just about 300, just north of 300 pounds of gear right now on there, and that's pretty good, you know. Now you might say, well, don't close the roof now because you'll lop off the telescope, and you're absolutely correct. That's why
get outside so you can put it to sleep.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I'll show you because now, like, then when we're done for the night, what we'll end up doing is we will indeed do what she just said. We do what's called park it. Okay, so right now I'm parking the telescope. Now, you might say, well, how do I do this if I don't have Marianne there with a camera? I actually have security camera in there. I'm watching the telescope on a whole other system, so I see whether it's moving to the right position and whether it's doing what it should be doing.
Right.
And right now, it's going to stop automatically in this predetermined parking position that I noted. Okay, and you'll see right there, it's going to stop, and boom, it says we are in park position now in my software. And then I can disconnect everything. All right, and so now the telescope is completely disconnected, and I can shut off its power. Are you talking to me, Marianne?
No, I'm sorry. I have another gentleman here who's one of the astronomers that has one of the buildings. So I was just talking to him for a second and telling him about SkyTour Radio and that we're on the air.
Oh, and is this
So,
is this the gentleman you met the other day?
yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, he just said to say hi. Doesn't want to come on camera. So
Fair enough. Nice to meet
just
you.
want to say hi.
I'll say hi.
You say hi? Okay, well, this is Ken. And
Hi,
he'll
I'm
say
Ken.
Hi, Ken.
I live in the observatory, just 3 or 4 observatories down from.
See, we're a close-knit community, aren't we?
Yep.
Yes. Can you hear what he just said?
Yeah,
Mark?
I didn't hear. I heard him say that he's in one of the observatories a couple doors down, basically.
Yeah, he lives in Scottsdale. He's from Scottsdale, and he about four buildings down is his observatory and his telescope.
Yeah, Marianne says you have a nice instrument in there. I won't mention what it is, but that's pretty cool.
So he can't hear you because I got my ears in.
Oh,
Okay.
well, now I understand.
All right.
So
So
he's
good luck
just-
with the with this live stream. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the live stream. This is his radio show he does every week. So
Yeah, the radio show.
All right.
is
Anyway.
one thing, yeah.
Good luck.
okay.
Nice
All right.
meeting you.
Nice meeting you too. All right.
So
Sorry
nice to
about
see
that.
you.
So who's gonna
Yeah.
stop by?
So you see, that's the miracle of live radio. You get to meet people that you had met. I met a guy named Dennis who was in the next 2 buildings down from us last time I was there. The guy directly next to us has a telescope, and during the night, when clear nights, it's always looking and moving around. He's doing what's called photometry. Now, I did photometry when I was getting my astronomy degree, and it's a very exacting science. You have to take into account the amount of air you're looking through, the amount of sky brightness you're looking through, and you have to subtract all that stuff out so you get the actual intrinsic or native brightness of the star, for instance, that you're trying to get the brightness values for. And if you're studying stars that vary in their brightness, this is very, very important. All right.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing, right? So that's neat. So now that you've had a tour of the building and the observatory structures, is there anything else, Marianne, that you want to add that I haven't?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. I didn't know if there's anybody in chat that wanted to look any closer to any of the stuff on the telescope itself. Now, we do have to say that this telescope too, some of the donations helped us get folks out there in chat, the donations to get the telescope, to get all cameras and the computer, everything. And we thank you all for all of your donations. And
This is really good. Yeah.
we still have a lot to go, and we want to build on. And again, thank you for the donation. That we're just gonna keep growing. The three of us, the three musketeers, we're gonna keep growing and growing with Skype for Live Streamer.
Yeah.
That's gonna be great.
I will say, there's a number of people in the chat that were saying hi to Ken, but of course he couldn't hear it. But Karen said hi to Ken.
Oh.
Okay. And Kurt said hi to Ken. Okay, very nice. Kurt also said this about me. I'm not really a mad scientist. I'm a very happy scientist, if you call
They're
it that.
so angry.
Angry.
Different kind of mad.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I apologize. I did that earlier.
I know.
I did that earlier.
Surfing on your phone.
Thank you.
Marianne.
Man, I've never done this on location. I've never been on StreamYard.
This is great.
This is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
now I want to shift gears now because you're on here not to just tout everything we're doing, but you're here to also talk about UAPPD.com. So Tara and I are going to go on a coffee break, and you're going to just tell everybody all about it.
Well, let me just kind of explain how we started. A lot of folks out there in chat know what I did for a living for 34 years. But for the people that don't, I was a police officer in Arizona for 34 years. And my partner, Dave Rich. Yes, I was at Canna Boy. Talks about tasing and tasing you, Mark, by the way. But my partner, Dave Rich, no, you're too sweet, Tara. I would never do that. But Dave is 25 years.
Good for the other.
No, it's not.
25 years law enforcement. And we were at a meeting one time, and I don't remember what was going on in the meeting, but, the disclosure came up. And I'm thinking, okay. So we were discussing with a friend of ours about, you've got this disclosure going on in the government, and you have some military people coming forward, airline pilots coming forward, but you don't hear about law enforcement or first responders. And I was talking to Dave, and I go, well, why not? Why aren't they talking? And Dave goes, well, I can tell you exactly why they're not talking. It happened to me. And he told me about what happened to him. It was 2017. He was working as a school resource officer in Gilbert. And he had one Saturday morning, there was a call that came into our dispatch, a 911 call to our dispatch. It sounded like a young girl's voice. And it was like, I'm scared. And the dispatch says, excuse me, ma'am? Says, I'm scared. Dispatch says, you're scared? This voice goes, no. And you hear this little hiccup, and then you hear the phone drop on to the desk. 14-minute open line. Dispatch is trying to say hello, 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 nothing. Two police officers get into the school. They go in, they're searching around, they're looking for anybody, nothing. But they do find the phone off the hook sitting on the desk in the main part of the school where the principal's office and stuff is, the lobby. Anyway, so they do that, they check, nothing. So Dave's supervisor contacts him and says, hey, do a thorough investigation. Somebody might be messing around with 911. So he did literally a thorough police investigation, and even went to as far as goes to the box that's out by the street, the telephone box, to make sure nobody could get in there. And with all the cobwebs and everything, nobody was in there. They also took the phone off the hook and just left it on the desk just to do a check to see, could it, for some reason, something could have happened on Friday, and this call came in on Saturday. And they did that. The phone goes silent. It dies in 15 seconds. So it wasn't that. So Dave had the 911 tape, which we still have, which is really cool. He took that to a couple of guys that do voice analysis, one's with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And after an analysis done on the voices, it was not a human voice. It was not, what is it called, AI, or, the generated,
not synthetic,
automated. Yeah. And you really, 2017 really didn't have a really good grasp on all that, just not anybody. So he basically believed it was a ghost that called 911. So about a week or so later, he was called upstairs to a sergeant's office. Well, if anybody is in law enforcement or anything, if you hear a boss from upstairs wants to talk to you, it can't be good. Yeah, it cannot be good. So so he went upstairs, and even though that sergeant had the video from the security footage and the audio, he still called Dave a liar and says, if you talk about this, you're going to be fired. So for 6 years after Dave left this guy's office, he swore, he goes, I have a young family. I have 6 more years for retirement. I'm not blowing this. So he held it. He didn't say anything for 6 years.
Wow.
The stress hurt his family life, hurt his career a little bit, and it hurt his health because you're keeping all that stress inside.
Yeah.
Well, the day he retired, now beforehand, it was about a month before he retired when we decided to start UAPPD, because Dave is not the only law enforcement officer. Now, when we say first responders, we're talking ambulance drivers, paramedics, firefighters, nurses, anybody on that front line. Yeah, thank you. So we know that there are people out there, but there's no place for these folks to go. And how we say it is, there's over 800,000 police officers in this country alone. They're working 24/7, 365 days a year. They're out there patrolling. They're seeing things, but they're not talking. So again, we started this organization. We were getting our word out, and oh my goodness, we started getting a lot of encounters, getting a lot of phone calls from law enforcement. A lot of them don't want to be identified. Some are still working, which I totally understand.
For the same reason as Dave.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I do have one encounter, one story from a federal prison officer. And even though he's retired, he had 4 different occasions with entities and UFOs up in the sky and all. But even though he's retired for at least a good 5 years, he told me specifically, do not use my name, do not use my photo, my picture, because he's still afraid that they would take away his pension. He's retired.
That's crazy.
But that's how scared he is about what happened. And after I finished my interview with him, he literally broke down and started crying and said, thank you. Finally, there's a place for me to go. Somebody is listening to me. And I said, of course. So again, that's why we started UAPPD. We just want to make sure to let everybody know, law enforcement, first responders, that there is a quote unquote safe zone for them to come, share their encounters, get it out of their system, because it could be stressing them out and the anxiety building up inside. And as you all know, getting that stress, the anxiety, that's not good for your health. But that's what we're here for. So whether on duty, off duty, they can, you see and I thank you guys for putting my website up. You can contact us through the website, and we can talk over the phone, or if somebody feels a little bit more comfortable rather talking in person, I have no problem jumping on a plane, getting in my Jeep, and driving wherever I need to, or fly wherever I need to get the story from these folks.
Fly with a Jeep.
Yeah, fly with my Jeep. That'd be kind of fun. But I can go anywhere.
I had a comment. You talk about law enforcement and the reticence to report something. It seems like we went through this already with airline pilots. Remember?
Yes.
Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Something flies by the cockpit, and they call the tower. We saw something strange. It flew by. It kind of paced us, and it crossed right in front of us and took off. Oh, you want to report a UFO? And then there's a moment of pause, and you hear negative. We don't report it. And the reason was because you'd get a psychological test, reprimand, and requirement, and then next thing you know, you're labeled and marginalized. And so, yeah. But luckily, but I'm going with this is with airline pilots now, that stigma is no longer there. Now, airline pilots are free to report this.
Wow,
in fact,
wonderful.
Many times, I actually talked to one just not too long ago, and he reported some really strange lights he saw in the sky that didn't look like satellites to him. Now, he didn't say they weren't satellites, but they said they did not look like satellites because they made strange angles in the sky. And I said, well, that's the kind of thing we look for. Strange angles in the sky. So, but the thing is, we could not have known this until airline pilots as a whole were treated better about the things they actually see in the cockpit. Right. And now with first responders, now they are the ones that are in that spotlight. And hopefully at some point, people are going to say, well, they're free to report what they see. And they're not going to have to hold it anymore like Dave did for so long.
Well, and that's true. And it's not the public. I mean, it is a little bit of the public wondering, should we trust this officer that comes out to take a report or do something like that? But the other is the other law enforcement officers, the other cops on your team. Now, Mark, you rode with me one time. You saw my team. They're a great bunch of people.
Yeah, they were really nice people.
They're amazing, great people. They knew what I do or did, I should say, with MUFON and whatever, UAPPD. They know what I did, and they were very receptive. I had no problem. But Dave, well, even 2 weeks before he retired, I put something on Facebook about UAPPD. Now, this is a 25-year veteran. He had 2 weeks before he retired, and the guys at his police department, his station, which was the north side, they were putting bumper stickers, honk if you love grays, tinfoil hats and all. They were ridiculing him to this.
And he's a big guy to ridicule.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying is the public might accept it because of the disclosure, because of everything. But it's the cops, your teammates. We're brothers and sisters in blue. Well, we tell the brothers and sisters how many people have brothers and sisters and how many times do they pick on you, and that's what sisters and brothers do. Well, they still pick on you if they know that you saw a UFO or anything. Basically, the biggest thing is court. You get a defense attorney that hears that you saw a Bigfoot or a paranormal incident.
Or even
a UFO. And here you are on the stand and you're doing a court case of a stolen vehicle, say. You've got him dead to rights, the suspect, he was in the car, you stopped him, you arrested him. I mean, this is an open shut case. Well, the defense attorney said, found out you saw a UFO. So they say, officer, you're on the stand. And he starts snickering a little bit and goes, officer, so did you really see a UFO? Well, as an officer, you get up on the stand and you raise your right hand and say and put your hand on the Bible and say, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. So what are you supposed to say? Of course, yes, I saw a UFO. He starts snickering even more. You can get one juror to start snickering When they go back in that jury room, that juror is going to get 11 other guys and gals to start not believing this officer, questioning their credibility and questioning their sanity. And then what do? They come back with a not guilty verdict. So this suspect gets off because the defense attorney started making comments about you seeing something out there. Defense attorneys talk to each other. So it gets around the community. Just, hey, if you're about to lose a case, just ask them about the UFO. You'll win the case every time. So the defense attorneys are all knowing this. Prosecutor hears about it. They're like, I can't use you on the stand. You're not, you've lost your credibility. Chief of police hears about it, says, I can't use you on the street. You can be a meter maid, but you can't be a police officer anymore. There's just no way. So anyway, that's how they will lose their career. The chief says, we can't use you, so we're going to let you go. And then other agencies hear why they let you go, and you're not going to get hired. So even though it's going to be accepted someday, it's still not the norm, now in police work. But you know what's interesting? If you were on a tribal reservation, they believe in all of this. When Dave was telling his story to a couple of officers on one of the local reservations, the tribal officers are like, that happens all the time. We talk about it everywhere.
That's it.
That's
your big story. You just see
exactly.
What we see. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's normal. So if they went to court, the people on the jury says, well, I saw one too. And it's I don't want to say it's the norm, but it's accepted on tribal lands than it isn't on, non-tribal lands.
Right.
Well, there's different levels of credibility afforded you depending on where you are. So on tribal lands, where the culture is open to those types of experiences and they see them, they're not discounted. They're not dismissed. They're embraced and say, yes, we saw this. We saw that. Oh, okay. So then in some ways you actually gain credibility as someone who saw one of these things. So you certainly know what they look like because you've seen them before.
Exactly.
But you don't do that as someone who's non-tribal and now. But that is changing. Let's paint another picture, Marianne and Tara. We look at the U.S. government. Look at how the government stance on what they now call UAP, as in UAPPD. See right down there, UAPPD.com.
Wow, imagine that.
UAPs, a nickname coined by the government to remove it from the UFO tinfoil hat, connotation. Okay. A UAP now is something that's well established in government circles. Okay. I was told that I may be testifying in front of Congress about a USO that I was witness to when I was on the U.S. submarine. You guys know the story. Most of the people listening know. Okay. And I wasn't even a sailor. I was just a guest. So they're very frequent. Well, the bottom line is that the UAP thing, okay, when you talk about a UAP and the government is talking about UAP, now it's making it something that's acceptable in the culture, and it's trickling through slowly but surely. You can't tell how close it's getting, but it's getting closer. Was that closer than yesterday? Yeah, a little bit, a little closer still. Okay, so maybe we'll see it. Maybe we won't see it right away. But I won't say maybe we won't see it. Okay, because there's an equivocation there. We are going to see it. It's just how long it takes to get there. And when the government talks about it and says, when you have government officials and CIA people testifying before Congress saying, yes, there were bodies retrieved from these crashed craft. And you know where the bodies were stored? Yes, sir, I do. And I can't say it in open session. Okay. Yeah. So they go in a secret session, a top secret session, and then they can talk about it. All right. Well, anyway, in the same way, you see, law enforcement officials are facing that same thing right now from that outside. But for them, too, it's getting closer. The whole disclosure thing is approaching, getting closer. There are people that say, oh, no, we're never going to see disclosure. and you can understand that the government organizations are such that, well, they could be throwing up stone walls here and there, and that's true. But the fact is, they can't stop it. They can't stop it. It's rolling, and it's not going to stop. So,
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's fantastic.
That's what I wanted to say about that. So,
it's little at a time. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't know if we're going to really ever get disclosure in my lifetime. It'd be great. And we can say, okay, everybody, it's a safe zone. Talk about it. Share your experiences. Share your stories with us. And I'm going to put my little 2 cents in, if you don't mind. Not only law enforcement is I started with the MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. I was with them for about 7-8 years. And I got to know a lot of people involved in that. And now I'm with an organization called the International UFO Bureau, put on Mindy Topfest. And the IUFOB, I'll just call it the Bureau, is trying to get everybody together as one. So maybe we can come up with disclosure and we can maybe find an answer to some of this stuff.
Right.
But what I have seen through all my years kind of being in the UFO realm is that everybody has their own opinion about everything. We're not coming together. And my analogy as a police officer, if I have a homicide, I have 3 detectives working the homicide. Each one has their own opinion on how the homicide occurred and everything else. You're never going to solve the crime because everybody has their own opinion about everything. But if they come together and work together, they're going to solve that homicide. And if we can get all of these scientists, ufologists, and everybody that's involved in all this come together as one, hey, let's work together and we might be able to come up with an answer to all of this. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's
great, man.
That's smart. That's smart. Anything you want to add, Tara?
That's hard to follow. Well, I think it does. It's going to take all of us, and all of us having open minds and being accepting of each other's experiences. You don't have to believe it, but I've had experiences myself, and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around some of that. And it is difficult for people, whether they are dealing with people who have had experiences or they've had their own experiences. And so I'm looking forward to everybody just knowing as well. I do have a question though, Marianne, if I can. Sure. Michael's talked about, what if they provide video footage? Marianne, isn't that first case you talked about, wasn't there video footage there? And didn't the lights go on? Wasn't there something cool about that phone call where the lights were triggered?
Well, no, that's the thing. They weren't triggered.
And it would have had to have been if someone was there.
Correct.
Is that what it was? So if someone had gone and used the phone, those school lights would have come on automatically. And after so much time, they would have turned off.
Right.
But, exactly.
Right. And they weren't on.
No, they only went on. They came on earlier because there was a custodian or somebody that came through like 3 hours prior. They came on and then they went off, of course. But no, when Dave looked at that security footage, he looked at it from about 6 a.m. until after the police officers arrived. And that was probably about maybe 10:50 a.m.
Right.
And the phone call came in at like 10:38 a.m. But you watch it all the way through. There's 3 sets of lights over where the desk is. Just on the far left side and then over at the front doors. And no lights. When that exact time that call came in, not one light, and the light would have been right over the phone. Right. That light never went on. Now, what would have been so great, but there was not a camera that it faces the front lobby where the secretary sits in the phone. but the phone was down on the desk. So we did not have a video.
Yeah, that would have been awesome seeing it come off the hook, right?
Oh, that would have been sweet. That would have been so cool.
I was talking to Dave Rich about this case and trying to arrange and organize, and I'd still be willing to try it, a way to actually sneak in without turning on the lights and just take the receiver off and lay it down and then sneak out without being caught. I'd like to see if I can do that. I'd be willing to bet I can't, because you've got to move so slow to make sure those lights don't trigger, because you can do it as long as you move like slow.
Okay. So you did that, and are you going to push the 911 and slowly get back? But unfortunately, you can't even. They reorganized the whole front lobby of that police of the school.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry.
We have to rely on Dave's original investigation. So.
Well,
that's exactly.
But Dave made some valid points when we talked about it. Because I always look at, sometimes the most outlandish idea is actually the right one sometimes. Okay. And the outlandish idea I had was that someone snuck in slowly as a theory. Now that it has to be tested. You can't discount it. It has to be tested. But because they rearranged the lobby, and I remember them talking about this, we can't actually do this. So we do have to just take the cases for at face value. Yeah. And that's actually a very interesting case. It's one of the few cases that I've seen that I think is pretty cool. Now, one thing you didn't mention, maybe you did, I don't remember. You said that the voice said "I'm scared," but it wasn't that. It said "I scare."
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually "I scare." Yeah.
It was the aggressor, "I scare," not the frightened victim, "I'm scared."
Big difference.
Another thing that Dave talks about, and I'm not very versed in the paranormal and the ghosts and all that. You have the voice boxes, you've got all this equipment where you ask, where you think there's a spirit in a room, and you ask them questions, "Hey, Hank, are you here?" And you've got this voice box thingy going, and then all of a sudden you hear 2 minutes later, "Yes, oh, he's here." And that's great, but it took 2 minutes for this spirit to say something. Yeah. What was interesting about this 911 call, the dispatcher, this spirit or this whatever it was in the phone was giving immediate responses. 911, what's your emergency? I'm scared. Excuse me, ma'am? I'm scared. You're scared? No. That's the interesting part, is that there was an actual, it's a conversation that's ongoing, not 2 minutes later and answering. So that's really unique that happened.
Yeah, it is. It is. The only other time I encountered something like that was when we were filming for Discovery Plus. We were filming Alien Invasion Hudson Valley, and we were out in the Hudson Valley. Okay, our producer Bill Skywatcher knows, and we set up these pods along the way, 125 feet away, 150, 175 feet away, and we noticed that we saw something coming toward us, and it lit up the first pod. The first pod detected something there. And then it started coming closer, and the second pod lit up as it got closer to us. It reminded me of that old Johnny Quest cartoon where that invisible monster was tromping toward them. You see the footprints.
I forgot about that.
And I was like, I actually got scared, thinking, oh man, this is kind of cool. Okay. But there was a bunch of us there. The production crew was there and everything. But we could talk to the production crew on camera. We weren't trying to do like a regular show kind of a thing where it's called the fourth wall. You don't break that fourth wall. You pretend the camera's not there. We didn't. We wanted the camera. We'd say, look over here, put that infrared light on that, and they would see that there was something rustling in the leaves and we couldn't tell what it was, and then it got close. It got to the 25-foot mark. And that's when Ben Hansen, good buddy, called out, are you here for us? And it triggered the alarm. Beep, once for yes, twice for no. Okay. Are you here for Mark? Silence. Are you here for me? Meaning Ben. Silence. Are you here for Melissa, the other person in the group? Beep. Like, uh-oh. So Ben and I stand back and say, you go. You go. Like,
Dodge that bullet.
So the bottom line is that, yeah, we treat it kind of with a grain of salt, but you look at the sum total of the evidence and you see that this really did mean something was there. Something was going on, right? And so when you look at that phone call, okay, the phone on the desk, a 911 call from that very phone on the desk,
Right?
not from an extension down the hall in the nurse's office or something, but from that front desk phone. And that's the other question I asked Dave. If that front desk phone was off the hook, could it have been attached to another line somewhere else and be mistaken for being the front desk phone? And the answer was absolutely not.
Nope.
Never heard of
so
that. Yeah.
all that stuff was downplayed.
That's it.
So I thought it was a cool case. That was a very cool case, and I'm glad you shared that with us. That's actually kind of one of your primary cases that I think still needs exploration and investigation. But anyway.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's been quite a while, but it's a wonderful story, an encounter that he has. And again, that's why we started UAPPD, because of what he went through. And we know there's other law enforcement, first responders that have gone through it. And
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
No. I'm just going to say that if there is any or are any law enforcement or first responders out there listening to us, please reach out. And, you can remain absolutely anonymous or you can be identified, but we would love to hear your encounter, and also help you through any trauma that you might have.
Right.
Because we've been through it, and, Dave knows what to do. And we know the stress is out there and we want to relieve that stress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just want to also say this is SkyTour Radio. I'm in Connecticut. Tara is in North Phoenix. And Marianne is down in Benson, Arizona today at our Benson SkyTour Livestream Observatory. If you joined us at the beginning, you saw a nice tour of the observatory. So right now she's sitting in the observatory. The roof is off because I rolled the roof off so that she could get some sun.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of wind. I apologize, guys. A lot of wind out here.
No, that's okay.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I thank you so much. Now, what's cool is anybody in New York, Dave and I are going to be in Pine Bush, New York, June 7th. Yeah, June 7th at the Pine Bush UFO Fest. Would love to see you guys out there.
Marianne and Dave are going to speak there.
That's great.
You'll hear this story and many more. I'll also be there speaking as well. And I've been speaking at Pine Bush almost all the years many years. But then we have Contact in the Desert as well. I'm going to be at Contact in the Desert I'm actually doing 7 different things.
Wow.
Contact this year. A bunch of lectures and 2 sky watches with Ben Hansen.
Hey, cool.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
cool.
like, yeah. So, and then in August, I'm going out in Colorado. I'm going to Colorado on the 16th of May to teach photo and video analysis for Seth Feinstein's group out there for MUFON. And then in August, Snippy the horse. I know that's a weird conference, but Snippy the horse. You're out in the middle of in the darkest skies in the United States. And I'm going to do a sky watch out there. I don't know if I can hold it together. Cool. It's going to be the most dark skies ever. Marianne is in a spot right now that's really, really dark. Okay. It's very dark where she is now. Now the sun is out, so obviously not. But when the sun goes down, it becomes very dark. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You can see stars and beyond stars. Imagine a whole nother order of magnitude darker than that. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on. And Marianne, I want to thank you for joining us today and talking all about this. This was cool. Well, it's a little different from what we normally do, right?
Well, Marianne, what are you going to do with all these? I mean, what are your plans? You're going to go speaking at the conference. Is that what you guys are going to try to do, is break this out so everybody can understand what's going on? Share all these
And that's
stories?
it. Yeah. We tried whatever conference invites us, we want to be there to share all of this. We just was on Dead Air podcast with Ken DaCosta. We did that this last Sunday. And we're going to be on with, his name is Coit, and I don't remember what his podcast is, but it's out of the UK. And that's going to be 9 a.m. our time. We're going to do a podcast. I think it's going to be a pre-record. So that'll be cool to get our stuff out in the UK. I mean, that would be awesome.
Yep.
But no, anytime we can share our experiences and share what UAPPD is all about, we're trying to get the word out. And, if anybody listening, just, I have a cousin, I have a brother, I have a sister. It's kind of cool. They hear us, and then it just kind of goes up and it flows, and somebody knows somebody, and that's what I love. And we would love to hear from them.
Yeah. And we have about a minute left before we have to go to a break.
Well, I'm going to let you guys go, but I'll see everybody on the stream tonight. I'm looking forward to it, but it won't be in this building because I'm afraid of the dark. So I'm going to be at my friend's house watching that.
The stream will be in that building, but it's
stream here, me. Yeah. I will not be sitting here during the stream. It's too dark for me.
All right.
Watch out.
Well, yeah. See, I told you, dark sky. All right, Marianne, thank you so much for joining us. UAPPD.com, folks. UAP-PD.com. Marianne, Rob, David, Rich. Show them some love. Go to UAP-PD and check in, say hi. And we are going to be back in just a minute, right after these words.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you'd like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
Wow. That was fun,
Wow.
wasn't it?
That was so cool. Marianne's awesome.
I know. Well, show's over. I'll see you.
Okay.
No, this is great. And I had, we've all had experiences we can't explain, and that border on paranormal. But I've said something often that I think is true. Today's paranormal could be tomorrow's science with just a little bit more understanding, right?
It's magic from the past, right?
That's right. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, remember?
Right.
Okay. And that's true. That's true. Like, for instance, UFOs that seem to shimmer and vanish right before your eyes and then reappear over there, okay, without traveling the space between here and there. Okay. To us, that's magic. All right. True invisibility. However, with the latest findings in string theory that we're talking about and the Kaluza-Klein hypothesis out there that we've talked about, we did a whole show on that. We see that, no, it's just dimensional shift. It's just changing and shifting dimensions. And so when you shift out of the 4 dimensions we travel in, you go into a 5th dimension, you will vanish from the 4 dimensions. And that vanishing from the 4 dimensions is something that's very, very important to understand, because the 4 dimensions that we live in are X, Y, and Z moving through time. And that's all we know. The entire universe, the entire world, every bit of human experience has been within the 4 dimensions. We've never been outside those 4 dimensions.
That we know of.
That we know of. That's right. That we know of. That's right. Now, I had a frightening experience when I was younger. I was investigating just to see how it worked. The idea of this out-of-body travel. I read some books and it said, well, we can do it if we match electrical energies in our bodies. We can sort of slip out. And that was actually interesting to me. So I figured, all right, well, as a science guy, I'm going to investigate it and see if there's any truth to it, or if it's something ordinary that's being mistaken for something extraordinary. Okay.
Magic.
All right. So I tried it. I worked on getting these electrical signals in my mind to go up and down in my body, race all the way to the bottom of my feet and all the way to the top of my head. I'm doing it now because I got so good at it. And you go faster and faster and faster. And when you get to a certain point, what I call a resonant frequency, all right, now you can side slip, at least that was the idea. So I was in bed one night and I did it. I'm going up and down, going up and down. I'm feeling tingly. I'm feeling like I'm not laying on the bed anymore. And next thing you know, I feel like I'm falling out of bed. And I go, whoa, I'm falling out of bed. And I go to reach with my arms and I feel the sheets, but they feel like there's no friction. It feels like I'm sliding. And I realized, oh no, what is this thing that's next to me? That's me. I was looking at myself.
You got out of body?
I did. And I was scared the living out of me. Okay. And I got so panicked. I said, what's happening? What's happening? I'm going to die. I'm going to kill this is not good. No. And I struggled to get back in. I couldn't get in. It's like a puzzle. You got to turn it the right way before it locks in. So I forced myself to calm down and I realigned in a way that's instinctive. You don't even know really what you're doing. And I certainly didn't know what I was doing. And so I ended up fitting back in like the puzzle piece. And I woke up and now it was me again. I could hear my breath again. I could feel my body again. And I got up and I started stomping around with my feet to make sure I was really there. I never did it again. I never
scared you that much? Is that why?
Scared me. Yeah, terrifying. Yeah.
You don't think that's something you could control?
Oh, maybe.
Practiced it?
Maybe, but I'll watch you first.
It sounds like something fun to try, but if it's scary, maybe not.
It's fun to try. Yes, it's fun to try. Yes, it's all fun and games until you put out your eye.
Yeah.
It was just weird. Okay, I'm not gonna lie.
That's pretty interesting.
And I wasn't, I wasn't, really as much into that that next, try. And yes, Daisy and Zoe, that's exactly right. It was what they call the astral projection, which I always thought was ridiculous and silly. Okay, until I noticed a very strange effect with me that I did, like I just mentioned to you. So clearly, there is something about this that we need to investigate, and so that's why maybe this is tomorrow's science. Maybe this is a way to understand quantum entanglement better. Quantum entanglement,
Love that.
remember that the great term, okay?
Mhm.
But let me just formalize and give you a definition of what quantum entanglement is, okay? In the physics world, okay, we'll go there and then we'll talk about the macro world, like with us. Okay, in the physics world, you have electrons, you have protons, neutrons, muons, gluons, and so ons. Okay, in that world, electrons have a characteristic called spin. Okay, trust me, quarks have things called charm. Okay, so
It's wonderful how they're doing that.
and they have color. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's not meaning the same thing as red, green, blue. Okay,
For
it's
creative.
something totally different. So anyway, so the different terms to mean different characteristics. Well, electrons have spin. They have spin up. They have spin down.
Right.
Now, if you take let's just make it really simple. You take a solid, say you split it. You put this half in laboratory A and this half in laboratory B. Okay, you measure the spin of the electrons in laboratory A over here. Okay, and you see that they're spin up. Okay, up spin. You don't even have to check these guys to know they're spin down. Okay, that's the idea. Now, if you measure this and you see that they're spin down, if you change them to spin up somehow, these change to spin down. Now, here is what makes it spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it. Those electrons could be light years apart. All right. And theoretically, the change is instant. What's that mean? It means that there's a connection that supersedes everything else in the universe in our four dimensions. It's not a four-dimensional quality. It's a quality that exists outside the four dimensions. Could it be a fifth dimensional connection? Maybe. Okay, maybe. Because in the four dimensions, we can't do that. But in the fifth, remember the idea is that if aliens travel from the four dimensions, go into the fifth, they could pop in at another location in the four dimensions without traversing the intervening space. Right. So that basically is like a conduit for them to go in and out, right? So they can go in and out, and so they could do that. Maybe that has to do with it. Maybe that's why when we slip out of our bodies in this astral projection, are we really staying in our four dimensions, or are we actually figuring out a methodology to transfer into another dimension? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, do we know what's in those other dimensions? Does anybody know?
No.
Scientifically, is it just anything mathematically that we could know? I mean, because how do they?
Yes.
They must have had time to figure out if I'm going to go in this dimension and come back out. They must have had time to practice going in and out to know how to control that, right?
That's correct. And so these are more characteristics of quarks, by the way. Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Strangeness and charm. They have charm. Yeah. What does that mean? Okay, it's a characteristic. Okay, you'd have to look at the definition.
And it has to do with when you look at it, right? The actual act of measuring.
Yeah, that's the key thing. Okay, when you actually measure it, all right, at that point, that's when you know for a fact what the other thing is in terms of its spin for an electron or something in the quantum entanglement world. Now let's talk about at the higher level. Now I made up a word. I admit it. I did this. I talked in Ozark, Arkansas, and there was like 600 or 700 people in the audience. And when I first went out, I said that before I get started, I was going to do an astronomy, ET kind of lecture. I said, I just wanted to ask a question. How many of you sitting at home thought about someone you hadn't talked to in 10 years and the phone rings and it's them? Every single hand, and your hand went up too. Yeah. Every single hand goes up. Now, why is that? Right. Why is that? Yeah. Well, that is quantum entanglement, but not of the same kind as we talk about with two electrons, okay, or electron pairs.
Hmm.
Okay, we're talking about quantum entanglement at this new word I made up, the brainular level. Okay,
Love it.
it's the brainular.
And
Yeah,
how
it's
do
the
you spell
brainular.
that? Oh, just kidding. Can you
Brain,
use that in a sentence, please, Mark?
ULAR. Yes, I was thinking at a brainular level, more like a granular level, but brainular.
And that makes sense. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So the bottom line was, I ended up feeling like that was something that shows us that quantum entanglement is something that has been around, part of the universal fabric, if you will. Okay. The
Okay.
construct of the universe includes quantum entanglement of many things. Okay. And at the human level, where we're conscious sentient beings, we know. Oh, and I got to finish what I said in Ozark, because when every hand went up, I said, science would have you all believe it's just coincidence.
Oh.
And of course, everybody laughed. And I managed to break the ice, and now everybody was happy and wanted to see my talk, right?
Aw.
So it was sort of an introductory thing to help break the
Yeah.
ice. It was to hit them with a little puzzle that I already knew the outcome of, because it happens every time. In fact, I have to say, I didn't see not one single hand that was down. Everyone, all 600-700 people had their hands up, and they were all laughing. When they looked around, they saw everybody with their hands up. They were all laughing.
We're all more similar than we're not.
That is correct. And this has to do with the incredible construct of our brain, the way it evolved over time. I'm just going to show you something on the camera real quick. Marianne's still giving tours out there in the building. Look.
Good for her. That's Ken, right?
That is.
Okay.
Yeah. The other professional astronomer from down the road a bit. Yeah. So bottom line is that quantum entanglement is something that exists at the quantum level, yes, which is thus quantum. But there is a form that exists at the macro level, like the brainular level, like I joke about, okay, as well. And that form is something that we're all familiar with. So how could there not be science associated with that? There has to be.
We just don't know it, or
yeah, exactly. If we can explain it in terms of a physiology or in terms of a human experience thing, then we would actually be able to say, okay, now we have ding, 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 science to explain this. It's all science in the end. Yeah.
You think it's all science, or is it science in anything else? I mean, is the paranormal stuff science, do you think?
I think it's, I have a phrase for that too. I call it science undiscovered.
Okay.
And there are some people that might say, oh, that's short-sighted. Well, no, not really, because I think if there is a supreme being in the universe, I think that the definition of a supreme being is the greatest science mind in the universe.
Okay, I'd agree with that.
Because they have to know everything about the fabric of the universe. And for us, that means science, understanding science. I mean, look we only just found gravitational waves from, merging black holes, haven't we? We only just found those. Cool. Yeah, Einstein said you'd never see gravitational waves, right? Well, we did. And now we're hunting for the elusive gravitational particle, the graviton.
Right.
We have light waves, right? Like gravity waves. And we have photons, right? Duality. You can talk about light as a particle or as a bundle of energy as a wave. Okay. Cool. So that duality exists at the quantum level for a great many things. Gravity is the only holdout. We didn't know anything. We could calculate its force. The force is the force of gravity equals capital G, capital M, little m over r squared. M being the bigger mass, little m being the smaller one, like Earth and Moon. So G is a universal constant. GMM over r squared, distance between the centers of the Earth and Moon. And that's the gravitational force between the Earth and the Moon based on the mass. We're good at that. Yeah, we can figure that out. But can we harness it? Can we negate it? Can we reflect it? No. We can't. We can't move it. We can't change it. We can't refract it. We can't reflect it in any way. It's there, and it goes through everything. right?
Is gravity something we have to harness before we can kind of go out into the universe? Is it one of those powers that we
I
have to
believe
know?
so. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that it's the only way we're going to get off the rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the reason, okay, comes down to this. Everything we do is within 4 dimensions of our known universe. Those 4 dimensions include a speed limit. You know the speed limit in the universe.
Beep,
What is
beep.
it?
It's the light, speed of
Yes.
light, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beep, beep. That's right.
55. Oh.
Yeah. That's right. Double nickels. Yeah. Yeah. The speed limit is 186,282 miles per second.
I didn't know that. I could look that up. But...
And that's the speed of light,
Mhm.
Nerd. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me just prove that.
Okay, let's see.
Nerd.
Yep, you're right.
Okay. Yeah. So
As
being
I push up my glasses.
yeah. So speaking of that, when you think about this, then the speed of light is a limitation within our 4 dimensions. So if we want to go anywhere fast, we got to get out of the 4 dimensions. Now, we were just out of luck in previous decades because we didn't even know anything about other dimensions really. Well, now we have discovered that not only might there be, not guaranteed, might there be other dimensions. Well, these other dimensions might actually afford us the ability to just skip out of our 4 dimensions and utilize them for travel, like a travel conduit, kind of interesting. We have 5 fingers, you have 4 dimensions and a 5th. So your hand even shows you 4 like dimensions and a 5th down here.
Interesting.
Okay? Kind of a weird thing. But and that's just something I noted right now. I don't use that for anything. So the bottom line is, right, Tara, the thing is, right, if we could get out of those 4, then we can travel faster. Now, how does that even happen?
Well, you have to have volunteers, right?
Yeah, we definitely have volunteers, yeah. No, what you do is there's a certain particle. We've talked about this in one of the other shows, and it does hinge upon finding gravitons. Okay, the elusive particle of gravity, right? Seems odd, but then again, we have that with light. We see light everywhere we look. We're looking at light right now.
Right.
The light bounces off my face. My red light's up there in the ceiling, and my blue light's back there. They're all reflecting light down and off things, and it just happens so fast. It's all mixed in. We don't see the paths of individual photons moving through the air. Okay, we don't, but they are.
Right.
Okay, by the trillions upon trillions of trillions. Okay, moving through. Yeah, right. So what do we do? So we're stuck again in our 4 dimensions. Everything that we understand about the universe, we've seen with these eyes, which only see a very small portion of the spectrum that we've talked about. Right? Our eyes only see that red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, which is the spectrum that I show you here. This is the pretty, beautiful spectrum, which everyone sees in a rainbow and when they have a prism or in a bowl of water reflecting sunlight. Okay. But to the right of that purple, out a huge amount of distance is the ultraviolet, and then you got cosmic rays, you got X-rays and everything out there. We don't see those, but they can affect us. Okay. And then at the other end, you've got the red end of the spectrum on the left side, and then out past that, you've got radio waves, microwaves, and radio waves, and you've got infrared energy out there that the James Webb can now see. In fact, the James Webb doesn't see anything in here at all. The James Webb sees stuff that's like a mile at that scale beyond what we're looking at here.
Wow.
Okay, so we're talking about a massive amount of infrared capability of that. So it sees with eyes we don't have, right? And that's what's important about the James Webb. It sees with those eyes. It allows us to see the most incredible things that we've never been able to even visualize, because we don't know what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I have a question. Kind of, I'm still thinking about this dimensional, popping into dimensions. Wouldn't there be radiation by doing something like that? Or would we need to be concerned about any radiation that might happen? I mean, isn't that what gets us
I mean, for
Yes.
the interdimensional travel?
Yes, I mean, would we
Oh, yeah.
have radiation from going into a different dimension and coming back? And how do you
Yes.
prepare for something like that the first time? Or
Yeah, let's talk about that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to grab something off my table right now.
oh,
Be right
good, some
there.
radiation. Okay, cool. Okay, he's hiding it.
Okay. So the answer to your question is yes. We have to worry about radiation, and this is a UFO. This is the S4 famous UFO, right? Okay.
That's the Bob
Now,
Lazar one, right?
that's
Is that-
correct. The
Mhm.
sport model. Okay.
Mhm.
Now it can also be triangular. All right, but keep this in mind. Why do we worry about radiation? Well, there's one reason that might be really important here, and that is that look at the shape, okay, of this
Okay,
UFO.
circular and
Yeah.
flat disc-like. Okay.
Yeah, right. Now here's the thing. When we talk about generating particles that can pull us into that fifth dimension, those particles theoretically are Kaluza-Klein gravitons. All right. Those are particles of gravity that you can make that are 10 to the 16th times. Now, that's a lot of 10 to the 16th, a lot of zeros after the
A
one.
lot of zeros.
Okay. 10 to the 16th times more powerful than the gravitons that hold us to our chairs right now.
Oh, wow.
Now, what's interesting about that is they're so powerful that they make micro black holes at the same time.
Ooh.
And micro black holes theoretically exist. They live for a few nanoseconds. Those are billionths of a second, and then they're gone because all black holes evaporate. I don't know if anyone knows that out there, but all black holes evaporate. And this evaporation is something that for the smaller black holes of lower mass, it happens almost instantaneously. Okay. And so a black hole that evaporates in a few nanoseconds, you just have to keep populating the area around your ship with these micro black holes in order to do the work that these Kaluza-Klein gravitons are supposed to do. And that is to pull you from the 4 dimensions up into the 5th dimension. Okay. Now, the thing is, with light starts and stops in our 4 dimensions. It doesn't leave and go to another dimension and come back. Okay?
And we know that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. We know that about every other quantum force. We have the strong force, the weak force. We have light, electromagnetic force, and gravity. Okay. And we have light being the strong force being a fundamental force starts and stops within the nucleus of an atom. Okay. It's a strong force that holds protons together. They're positively charged. So to cram them together, you have to be able to have a strong force that would actually hold like charges together, like putting 2 north poles of a magnet together. No matter how hard you try,
can't do it.
You can't do it. The closer you get, the harder it is. That's what it is with protons. But the strong force acts over a very short distance, but it's the strongest force in the universe, and it can hold protons together and hold them in a nucleus up to about 118 protons, which is where we are now with our periodic table. Okay. Now that said, if you look at the strong force, it starts and stops within the confines of a single nucleus of an atom. Okay. Then there's the weak force. Okay. The weak force is why we're here. The weak force is what actually works to help us build different elements in our periodic table, which you see right here. Okay. Okay. Now, in this chart, if you look at the area that basically has a green on it, it says dying low mass stars make all the green elements. Okay. Those elements are made by a process called beta decay, where I know it's crazy stuff. Where actually a neutron ends up in a nucleus, and it converts to a proton. All right. So that causes an atom that may have had, say, 1 proton in its nucleus to now have 2 protons in its nucleus. So it goes from being hydrogen with 1 proton in its nucleus to being helium, which is the next thing in the periodic table.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's an example. So these dying low mass stars make elements this way. It's a very slow process. That's why it's called the S process. Don't worry about that. The point being, though, that this process is why we're here, because many of the elements in the periodic table were made, and many of those elements you have in you. Everything in your body, everything in all the bodies of everybody out there.
Isn't that amazing?
You were all built in the core of a star at one point. Isn't that crazy?
We're all superstars.
We are star stuff, as Sagan said.
Yes, he did.
That's true. That's right. And so star stuff was something that was coined by Carl Sagan, my favorite astronomer. And the thing that's interesting about that is that, understanding that you were built in a nuclear furnace kind of gives you a perspective on how it all works. So we have the strong force, we have the weak force, and then we have light. Okay. Now, every one of these things so far can be described as a particle. Electron is a particle. But an electron can also be described with a wave equation. Okay. So it can be described as not just a particle, but a wave. Okay. Now, same thing with beta decay. There are equations that govern how beta decay works. We can talk about particles that actually participate in beta decay. When we get to light, we have light waves and we have photons, individual packets of light that shoot out in all directions, right?
Okay, yes.
Then we get to gravity. Gravity was that weirdo. We could calculate its value. We could use it to get out of the solar system, and we did. We used it to get to the moon, get people to the moon and back, get rovers on Mars, and we have. Get the Parker Solar Probe to orbit perfectly around the sun, okay? Knowing how gravity operates, but not being able to manipulate it in any way. Why? We couldn't see its wave or particle nature in the decades that previously existed. We just didn't know, right? We finally see gravitational waves because they were gigantic when two black holes collided. This massive ripple, like throwing a pebble in the water in the pond and watching the ripples move out. Okay. We saw those ripples here on Earth. Okay. So we saw gravitational waves. What's left? The gravitational particle, the graviton. That's the thing that's meant to be seen now. We want to find that, Now,
so,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Well,
go ahead.
thinking, so the gravitational waves, now that we've seen them, we know what we're looking for. Have we found more? Or can we only see them from these big black holes colliding?
Well, merging neutron stars ripple space as well. But we only see them. We see what we can calculate what gravity does. Say the moon's gravity does around it. It bends space a little bit.
Right.
Okay. We see that. We see that space is warped, and we have a mathematical construct for what that means. Okay. The fabric of space. But what we don't have is a true ability to harness that and utilize it. We're subject to it. Right? Think about a car on a hill and driving over hills. The car has to follow the hills, right? It's going go up and down the hills. Right? Can it go through? No, right.
Unless there's a tunnel.
Right. It can't tunnel through, right? Now that's confusing because there is something called quantum tunneling. We're not going to go into that, but keep in mind that a car goes up a hill, down the hill, up a hill, down the hill. It follows the road. Light is like that. It follows the curvature of space. So if gravity really bends an area like around a black hole really steeply, light can get in and then end up circling around and never get out. Okay. Light has no mass. It can't be held in by gravity. So you have to be able to bend the medium that light travels on in order to move light around. And so if you fold space, light follows space, folds the folds in space. And so it'll curve down into a black hole and at a certain point never be able to get out. That's what they mean. Black holes are so powerful that light can't even escape it. Well, it doesn't mean that the gravity is really, really, really heavy. It just means on the light, it just means that space is bent so much that light that's following space can't get out of the gravitational well that it ended up entering. So that's kind of what we mean. Now, going back to this, okay?
Yes.
If we generate particles and surround our ship with these micro black holes that are very powerful, live only a few nanoseconds. Okay, knowing how strong gravity is the weakest force there is. Okay, and knowing how it works, well, what'll happen is the UFO that we're looking at might seem to shimmer and vanish right before your eyes because the black holes are, as they die, they're eating a little bit of the light that's coming to your eyes from here. Okay, so you're not going to actually be able to see it clearly. It's going to look like it's changing colors. All these things have been reported.
Right.
Okay. But what is it going? Well, as I said before, with the other three basic forces of the strong, weak, and light, quantum forces, we know how they work. They start and stop here in our four dimensions, but gravity doesn't. We see gravity at some level, but the rest of gravity, the other side of gravity, isn't in our four dimensions. Guess where it is? It's in
The fifth.
It's in the fifth dimension. And this is why if you generate particles that live in the fifth dimension, like gravitons, then if you generate enough of them and you surround your ship with them, then your ship is going to get pulled into the fifth dimension.
And then would you have radiation from that then?
Well, not necessarily. Yeah, yes, there's radiation in there too, but you're protected in your center of your ship. Now, we're just sidestepping a major question here, and that is, how do you generate these particles?
Oh yeah, we can't do that yet, can we?
No, but how would we do it? Well, we could generate them maybe with a fusion reactor, which Lawrence Livermore over in California is working on. Okay,
cool.
Yeah, but how do we generate it? The mechanism is we create a collider, like a Large Hadron Collider. What's that? It's a giant ring underground that accelerates protons to very, very high speeds, near light speed, close as it can get, and collide them. And the result provides this incredible, spray, so to speak, of information and data that we can then say, that's this type of particle, that's this type of particle, that kind of thing. Well, if you actually could make one of those particle accelerators much smaller, a circular accelerator, very small, like 30 feet across, you might end up with this, a circular UFO. See, this is a particle accelerator in my theory here about what this might be. And as a particle accelerator, it's building these particles up. It's generating particles, surrounding the ship with them, dragging itself into the fifth dimension. And then it just then, as it keeps making these particles, it stays in, or it can go make more and go farther in. Okay. And then what happens is when it comes out, it just has to have a targeted entry point. So they're very good cartographers. They've got to know where they're going. Right. We can't do any of this. Okay. But when it comes out, it will have gone from here directly to here without traveling from here to here through all the space in between. Okay. That means they don't need engines. They just need a particle accelerator inside their ship. So I put it to you that UFOs are particle accelerators. Now, what does that mean for us as humans? Well, if we get too close to one of these things while it's building up the particles surrounding the ship, guess what happens? You approach and you touch it, and what do people say happens when they get near a UFO?
It's electrocuted, right? Shock
and burns, right?
Yes, yes.
Radiation burns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, I said if you sit in the center of this thing, you're protected. But on the outside ring where the accelerator is, you don't need to be protected because that's you don't care as the occupant. But think about this: as the particles are going around and around and around, how are they going around and around and around? It's not like it's a tube that they're just clanking along and bouncing along the walls. You can't do that with particles that are highly charged, like protons.
Is it magnetic or something?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
right.
Cool.
It's rings of magnetic rings of magnetic conduits all around in here that force the charged particle to go in a circle. Now, charged particles don't like to go in circles. When you force a charged particle to go in a circle, you get a radiation that comes off of it. Radiation that is very, very bad for us. It's called synchrotron radiation.
Oh.
And synchrotron radiation is something that if you encounter it while the UFO is powering up, getting ready to move, okay, you touch it, you're going to get radiation burns.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, that explains why people report having patterns burned into their skin from a UFO's hot exhaust.
Right.
Where they were standing was probably at the exit conduit for these particles that are being sent out to bring it into the fifth dimension.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Interesting stuff, isn't it?
Mark, you had said something a minute ago about light. Everything stops except light, or did you say light stopped too at some point?
Yeah,
so if light has no mass, how does it stop? I mean, how?
It doesn't stop. What I said is starts and stops, meaning the origin point of light begins in our 4 dimensions and ends in our 4 dimensions. You shine the flashlight, the light originates at the flashlight and ends at the wall. When you're shining it on the wall. That's what I meant by that.
Okay.
But let's talk about what you just said, because that's actually kind of important. Okay. Light has no mass. That's correct. Now, no mass in terms of you can't weigh it and see how many grams or micrograms or nanograms.
21 grams is how much light weighs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're not going to get that. Okay. But what you are going to get is you're going to get a mass that you can talk about with light called a relativistic mass. It has to do with the momentum of the light. You remember the famous equation E equals mc squared? That's not the whole equation. There's a whole nother term in there. Okay, for objects that are traveling at light speed. That doesn't have to do with light for things traveling at light speed. That's for things traveling less than light speed. Because remember, m is mass.
Right.
And things moving at light speed don't have mass. That's correct.
Interesting. Okay.
That's right. So that said,
cool.
Yeah. So that said, when we talk about that, and I have a shirt that has the entire Einstein E equals mc squared with the HC, the Planck constant and all that. I have all that shirt, and I just haven't. I should have worn it tonight. It would have been a good night, but I didn't think I was going to go down this particular path.
You got to solve for your shoulder when you wear that shirt.
That's right. Oh yeah. Hey, equals mc squared. Okay, HC. Anyway, I could get pretty nerdy here. I'm kind of geeking out about this stuff. Keep in mind that what I meant by all that starts and stops means that we can harness and see everything in the 4 dimensions, the things like light, electrons, protons, and so on, as I said, and the strong, weak force of, and light itself. All that stuff is contained within our 4 dimensions. Gravity, on the other hand, affects our 4 dimensions, but it doesn't seem to be contained fully in our 4 dimensions. We see one end of it. And if you think of a string, like string theory, okay, one end of the string is in our 4 dimensions, the other end is in the 5th dimension. Gravity. So we can't really see gravity fully. When we see things fully, we can reflect it like light. We can change its direction with magnetism like a proton. Okay, because it's within our 4 dimensions, and we see the entire bundle that makes up what a proton is, that makes up what a neutron is, that makes up what a photon is. Okay, so we understand it, so we can reflect it, we can move it, we can change it, we can alter it, we can cause it to change its speed. Light travels at different speeds depending on whether it's in a vacuum or in water, okay, or a lucite. Okay, so that said, we can't do any of that with gravity. Gravity just is and has always just been. We've never been able to control gravity. But with the advent of some of the new things discovered at the Large Hadron Collider with their ATLAS detector, ATLAS, the search for Kaluza-Klein gravitons has been fruitful. And so it looks like we might actually see some work on Kaluza-Klein particles pretty soon.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah. And if you look at it this way, Lawrence Livermore working on a fusion reactor that could power a particle accelerator inside one of these things. And then we have the Large Hadron Collider over at CERN, okay, actually doing work to find the particles that the Lawrence Livermore team would end up using, or generating to create a ship. So maybe in 100 years or so, we might have a bottled water size ship that we can translate to a fifth dimension and just send it 20 feet.
Oh, that would be so cool to be around when that happens.
Right?
I think
Yeah.
it'll happen.
I do too.
It's a matter of time.
I do. Yeah. Now, one thing I want to also mention was after the show tonight, we are going to stream. The skies out in Benson are looking gorgeous, and it's really looking nice, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to just show you just a little bit right now. I showed you before, but I'm going to show you now what it looks like. The observatory is now, it's not, what's the word? It's not closed up, but it's actually, here we go. Let's share this. Okay. So this is right here. This is the view of the telescope in the building right now.
Nice.
Marianne has left. She's gone back to home where she's staying. So we see this here telescope.
The door behind it. Yeah.
That's the door there, closed now, and then the roof is open. So we always leave the roof open for about 45 minutes before we start going, because this way we end up getting the telescope to cool off to the same temperature as the outside air. That's very, very important to do. Otherwise, you get these disparate waves of infrared energy that just mess up every single image you're trying to take. We don't
heat waves in the desert, right?
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, what we're seeing is we're gonna at the conclusion of tonight's show at 10 p.m. At 10:45, we're gonna go live stream. Last night we were clouded out. Tonight we are not. And with the time between 10 and 10:45, I should have just enough time to get both observatories open. And we're going to be checking out some really cool things from there. And that'll be really neat, you know. So one thing I did want to talk about, which I didn't really talk about, was how an alien race might actually find us. And that's something that I want to do. Let me just get us back here. You know, it comes down to this. If we look at the possibilities of an alien race being out there, we have to consider a great many things. First of all, you may remember the famous Drake equation. Okay.
I love that equation.
Yeah, you know.
It's been changed though, right? Didn't they add something to it?
Yeah, they actually added the capability of now having a definitive number of planets that we found. And so now the number that used to be just one, because that's the way Frank Drake ended up calculating it out to be, we now have the possibility of anywhere from 25 million to 40 billion.
Oh my gosh.
In our galaxy alone.
Wow, just in one galaxy.
Our galaxy, yeah, and our galaxy is not a very, it's not large, it's not small, sort of average. Okay, the Andromeda galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy is more than twice as large as our galaxy. Has up to 1 trillion stars in it.
Wow.
You know? Yeah.
Trillion planets, probably. You know.
Well, yeah, it could have it. Could have that many. I'm just gonna take a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, you know, when we look at life in the universe, we think about, you know, here's our blue marble. You see it right there. But, you know, this planet is very special, right? But the question is, you know, would someone be able to find us, and how would they be able to find us? Let's address that question. First of all, our world is an oxygenated planet. It has oxygen in the atmosphere, and we are carbon-based beings. Okay, carbon. If we just quickly jump back to this right here, you look at carbon. It's number 6 on the periodic table up there. See the top row?
See.
Yeah, number 6. Okay, and look at oxygen, number 8. Right.
Right.
Okay. So with that in mind, here's something that's interesting. When we look at the abundances of elements in the universe, hydrogen is the top abundance. Okay. Helium is next. But then it doesn't follow the table. See, hydrogen at the top and then helium. Well, then you go through lithium, beryllium, and boron. But
Hmm.
then you have carbon. Carbon is the, I'm sorry, go to oxygen. Okay, we have hydrogen is number one. Helium's the second most abundant. Okay,
Right.
the third most abundant is oxygen. And the fourth most abundant is carbon. Now, this has to do with the elemental. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean that. This has to do, that is my book, though, The Populated Universe. And it
Wonderful
talks about
book.
all these things. Yeah, well, thanks to
And
you. You were the editor.
It explains everything so clearly and that you can follow along and
It's on
understand. Mm-hmm. Great book.
So carbon is like I said, carbon is the fourth most abundant element in the entire universe. And oxygen is the third. So that stands to reason that there's going to be a very interesting relationship between carbon, which is a very, very flexible atom, can bond with more things in the periodic table than anything else. It's a chameleon. It's a granddaddy of all elements. And so oxygen also figures prominently in life, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that life makes oxygen. Phytoplankton in the oceans, right? They make oxygen. They make 87% at last approximation. 87% of all the oxygen on the planet is made by plankton and phytoplankton. Yeah. All right. And
way to go, plankton.
That's right. And the rainforests make up the rest. Now, so the thing is, if we talk about oxygen being on our planet, life makes oxygen, right? And it eats carbon dioxide in many cases too. Trees do, plankton does. So in the end, when you look at a planet and you're looking for life as a carbon-based being, well, you know that as a carbon-based being, you need oxygen to survive.
Yes, you do.
So what are you going to do? You're going to look for planets, right?
Yeah. That have oxygen, right?
You got it.
Okay.
You're going to look for
what they're
planets
doing
that
for
have oxygen.
us, do you think?
Yeah, they are. And I think that that's why when people say, how could they possibly find us? They can't see us. Right? Yeah, how could they possibly see us? Guess what? We stand out like a big blue blazing beacon.
Do they have their telescopes with their little wheels spectrometry wheels looking for oxygen like us?
Probably at some point in their development they did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now they probably have something way more advanced. Right? Because they also have to be able to hop in little ships like this and make their way here by skipping through the dimensional conduits and finding their way here.
Wow.
And why would they come here? Well, they'd come here because they see oxygen in the atmosphere. Oxygen means there's life here. Not necessarily everywhere in the universe, because oxygen is made by geological processes. It is. Okay. However, oxygen is very corrosive. Oxygen likes to bind with all kinds of things.
Like iron.
Like iron. Thank you. Very, very good. You combine it with iron and you get you have 2 iron atoms bond with 3 oxygen atoms. That's Fe2O3. That's rust.
That's Mars, right?
Exactly. So that's why Mars is red. It rusted. You're so correct. So now, seeing that, and the surface of Mars is covered with hematite of many different types. So you have the rusty Mars thing, and that's because the oxygen in the Martian atmosphere, of which there was a huge abundance early on, dove into the crust after it was separated apart from the water vapor that was also in the air, because the ultraviolet radiation of the sun could penetrate the Martian atmosphere once the magnetic field of Mars began to die away, which protects us from all that. Okay. Protects Mars from that. It went away. And so now that happened long term. We see Mars as a dead world on the outside because of that. So we have this problem where on our planet, we have a beautiful magnetic field. We have oxygen in our atmosphere. The oxygen, as fast as it's being made, a lot of it's diving down into the crust and bonding with iron compounds. It's bonding with other atoms in the ground, in the ocean floor, on the land masses when it rains, all that. But it's still being produced in such high quantities that we have a relative level of it that stays at a fairly regular amount. Right now,
good.
21%. Okay.
Doesn't seem like that much.
I know, but it is. Yeah.
Hey.
You're breathing mostly nitrogen. Isn't that kind of odd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. You go to the hospital and you breathe pure oxygen, you get dizzy. It's like, whoa, that's
You do. Yes.
too much. Yeah.
Mm.
But the truth is that any alien race is going to find us, as it says right there. Well, how are they going to find us? They're going to find us by looking for oxygen in an atmosphere. And we stand out. We can't hide. Tess was looking at thousands of planets at once with its 96 by 25 degree field of view or so.
Wow.
And so it was looking at a massive number of stars and finding tons of planets. So I think that's with our primitive techniques. I think it's pretty clear that they're probably using more advanced techniques to find oxygenated planets around stars, right?
Yeah,
You know?
I hope our technology comes, advances quickly, during my lifetimes, because it would be cool to see a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah, it's actually come quite a long way
yeah,
since we were children.
that's true.
Yeah. Now,
True.
the question then we ask is, what makes us so special? And I just answered that. What makes us so special is that we stand out because of the oxygen in our atmosphere.
Yeah,
And as carbon-based beings, we need that.
gotta have
Now,
it.
huh?
Gotta have it.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. And not only that, but one of the things too that's interesting is that every single life form on our planet has DNA. Right? DNA is the pattern of life. It's the formula for life. Deoxyribonucleic acid. You have the adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine nucleotides, which make up DNA and all these varieties.
Cool.
Okay. And depending on how it's all linked together, you have a frog, or you have a chimp, or you have a Terra, or a Mark, So, or human. So the truth is that DNA is also something that the universe seems to provide. So if that's going to be the case for an alien race, they're going to want to look for, when they finally get around to it, they're going to want to look for life like them.
Just like we. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's true. And so, like, the question is, how did we become we? Right? Well, that's a question we'll answer, I think, in the next radio show. But that's okay. It goes on and on. Trust me.
It does.
Yeah. We talk about, we have to talk about how the Earth acquired all the building blocks of life. And I think next Wednesday we'll pick up from this slide.
Oh, cool.
We do that.
Okay.
We have a few more minutes. But I also want to make sure that, I want to make sure that you understand that when we talk about how did we become we, well, we have to consider that there is a formula. Now, Donald Kunzer mentions this. He says all organic chemistry is carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. That is correct. But I'm going to add something to it, Donald. I'm going to add a few more elements too. It's carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Okay. And so that's CHOMPS, CHONPS. Okay. You can think of it as CHOMPS, not CHOMPS, because it's not manganese or magnesium. It's just, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. So, and thank you, Donald. So this thing that's interesting is CHOMPS is sort of like the building blocks of all the organic chemistry that we have. And of course, carbon being able to bond with many things makes many different types of compounds, many different types of variations. Okay, you can have ions. You can have for instance, atoms that require an electron. You have atoms that want to give one up. Saying that's how it is with sodium and chlorine. That's why you have salty tissues, because sodium and chlorine. Basically, they give an electron to each other when they get near each other, and they're very easy to dislodge from sediments. So a little sodium atom will go trickling down the hill, and the chlorine atom will trickle down the hill. They get into water, and they can bond because one needs an electron, and the other one has one to give. So that's sodium chloride or salt, and there's many different types of salts. But in the simplest form, we're talking about sodium chloride. And so that salt goes into the ocean and makes the water like a salty consistency. That's why the ocean is salty, because those two elements made in the hearts of stars, way a long time ago.
And that's why we're salty.
That's right. We have a far less salt concentration. I think ours is just a couple of percent, and the ocean's a little higher. But we carry within our skin, the organ that's on the outside of our bodies. Okay, we carry
largest organ of the body.
That's correct, right? We carry a vestigial ocean within us, within those tissues. So effectively, we're turtles, because we came from the ocean, and we carry on our backs and throughout our bodies, we carry this vestigial salt reservoir with us. And our love affair with sodium has never, ever stopped, and it won't.
I love salt.
So, yeah, it's great. And every now and then your body calls for it,
It does.
Yeah. I hope you all enjoyed this tonight. And
I did.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I want to just say thank you once again to Marianne, who may be back at Glenn's house and watching. Maybe not. She's probably just sitting there talking. Okay. But you especially, Tara, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It was nice to have you. Have all three of you here. The movers and shakers of Skyter live stream were in the house tonight.
In the house.
In the house.
Bring
Okay.
down the roof.
10:45 in just a little while. Go to youtube.com/@STLS, or just look up Skyter live stream on YouTube and you'll find us.
Yep.
We're on Kick, Twitch, Trovo, YouTube, Rumble, and
Facebook.
yeah, we're on everything. Yeah, we're on everything. So join us here each week, my friends. You're sure to have a smile. Okay. And we'll be doing a wonderful night of astronomy tonight. So I look forward to seeing you. Thank you again, Tara.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Great time.
Hope you have a good night. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.